Got another one for me, just in case.
Don't mind with vodka.
Not gin, though.
Okay, I'm calling to order the July 11th Ad Hoc Advisory District and Committee meeting. Before we start, I'd like to encourage people who'd like to speak to fill out the speaker card. You don't have to, but it will help us stay organized. And let me read the procedure for this meeting. Oh, and also, if you haven't done so, please sign in. There are sign-in sheets at the door, and if you give us your contact, then the city will be able to keep you informed of any future development on this issue. Okay. All right. So, hearing procedures. Public hearings are conducted by the chair in accordance with the following procedures. The chair of the committee directs all activity during the hearings. All comments shall be addressed to the committee. Any item on this agenda may be continued, but I guess we won't. Applicants will be allotted up to 3 minutes to present, no, not applicants, sorry. Each member of the public will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. And no additional comments will be accepted upon the close of the public hearing, although the committee reserves the right to direct questions to any speaker on any matter. I guess that's it for the procedure. Okay, let's move on to roll call. Committee member Ricosa.
Present.
Committee member Estrada.
Present.
Chair Ikezi is also present. Okay, public presentations. Does any member of the public would like to speak on any matter not on the agenda today? This is your chance. Okay. Oh, okay, yes, please come up. And item not on the agenda. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, moving on to item 3 on the agenda, review of court order received on June 26, 2018, and legal requirements. We're going back to item 2, public presentations? Okay, yes, please come up. And if you'd like to give us your name, please go ahead.
My name is Teresa Sulzer, and I was a member of the Charter Review Committee that recommended that the city go to districts and change the voting methodology in the city that became Measure A, which did not pass in the last election. And I'm here in advocacy of districts. And the reason I would like to speak right now is I would like people to be aware of the benefits of having smaller districts to benefit democracy in our city. So, with smaller districts, it makes running a campaign much more affordable, which allows more candidates participate in the process, and that helps our democracy. It also means candidates are connected with the community that actually votes for them, and individuals will have lots of opportunities to connect with the candidate that they vote for in their lives on a daily basis. Candidates that are from smaller districts, their concerns and lifestyle are more closely tied with the concerns and lifestyle of their neighbours who vote for them. So whatever way we decide to go, going into smaller districts adds to democracy in our city, and I would like people to bear that in mind as we move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. Right. Next item, unless anyone else. Okay. Review of court orders received on June 26 and legal requirements.
Good evening, Chair and committee members and fellow residents. My name is Brian Doyle. I'm the city attorney. This is our third in a series of public meetings. I have previously made presentations about a court order that we have received, which is a case management order, basically, telling us that there's going to be a trial on this, on the issue of remedies in a California Voting Rights Act case that will go to trial next Wednesday. And what the judge appears to be looking at is possible remedies for what he has deemed a violation of the Voting Rights Act in a prior ruling. And so what has happened is last week the committee forwarded to the court 5 maps because there did not appear to be any kind of consensus among the public about which particular map to recommend. And we can go over those 5 maps. And then in addition, the case management order also required the plaintiffs in the lawsuit to submit maps, whatever plans they wanted for districts by last Friday. So I will present what the plaintiffs have presented last Friday. And then after I am finished, the demographer will provide some analysis of the various different proposals. So this is the first of the maps that was submitted to the court last Friday. This was submitted by the city on behalf of the committee. It was just simply submitted without any recommendation about which of the maps to adopt. Under this map, there are 6 districts, and there are no incumbents in districts 2, 3, or 4. In other words, 2, 3, and 4 you could have an election in districts 2, 3, and 4 without displacing a current council member in November 2018. In draft plan 3, this is the second of the 2 district maps. There are some alternatives in terms of how the districts are drawn below El Camino. And in this map, there would be no incumbents in districts 1, 4, and 5. Excuse me. No, districts 1, 4, and 5 do have 1, 4, 5, and 6 do have incumbents. Districts 2 and 3 would have no incumbents under this plan. This is the first of the 3 district maps. So what the committee forwarded to the court last week were 2 3-district maps. Each of the 3-district maps were as a result of a combination of 2 of the districts in each of the 6 districts, from each of the 6 district maps. So in this map, districts 1 and 2 were combined. 1 and 2 were combined, 3 and 4 were combined, and 5 and 6 were combined. And districts 1, 5, and 6 have incumbents with terms expiring in 2020. 2 of the 3 seats could be open for the 2018 election. In other words, because there's 2 members from each district, each of the 3 districts, then the fact that there's 1 incumbent leaves open another seat that is not have an incumbent in it. And this is, okay, hold on. This is the second of the 2 3-district plans. And this is where the other 6-district plan combined districts 1 and 2, 3 and 4, and 5 and 6. And again, 2 of the 3 seats could be open for the November 2018 election. That's districts 1, 4, and 5. Districts 1, 4, 5, and 6 have incumbents. Okay, now what this is a statement by the plaintiffs that they submitted together with 2 7-district maps. So the plaintiffs in this lawsuit are saying, we don't want any 6-district, we don't want a 6-district solution, we don't want a 3-district solution, we don't want a 2-district solution, we don't want a citywide solution, we only want a 7-district solution. And this is the words that they used in introducing these maps. They said, plaintiff propose that the 4 council members whose terms expire after the November 2020 elections should continue in office for the remainder of their terms, that the other 3 council members should be elected in November 2018 from 3 of the districts created by the court as its remedy, and that the council members should be elected from the 4 remaining districts in November 2020. Plaintiffs further propose that those 3 districts in which elections will be held in November 2018 shall include the district with the highest Asian American CVAP population percentage, which in the plaintiff's proposed map is a majority Asian American district, and the district with the second highest Asian American population percentage, which in plaintiff's proposed map is a plurality Asian American district, as appropriate remedies tailored to remedy the violation of the CVRA founded by the court. So these are the words that the plaintiff used in its submittal. Based upon the data they submitted with it, it appeared that in both maps, districts 1, 2, and 4 would vote in 2018. So I'll show you the 2 maps now. So 1, 2, and 4 would be the ones. So basically all the districts in the north would vote in 2018 under their plan. District 1 currently has a council member living in it. So it was very unclear, even though they're suggesting that the council member would continue to hold office. They would still be electing another council member in that district, and then that district would not run in 2020. So I guess their proposal is either that council member in District 1 would either have to run in 2018, in other words, to be able to continue to serve past 2020, that council member would either have to run in 2020. Otherwise, if they wanted to stay on the council, they'd have to move in 2020 to a different district that was open. So this doesn't, I'm just telling you that this is what I'm interpreting from what they're saying. The other impact of this submittal is the plaintiffs are proposing that the mayor no longer be elected citywide. In other words, the citizens of Santa Clara would no longer across the city have the right to select the mayor. They would instead elect the 7 council members, and then the 7 council members would then elect the mayor. So the current mayor's term ends as a council member in November 2018. So the consequence of this map is that the current mayor would not be able to run if she stays in her current council district. So that apparently is what the plaintiff's proposal is to the court, and what they're asking the court to do. It's pretty much the same story for this map. The lines are drawn a little bit differently, but it still looks like it's 1, 2, and 4 that don't have have the highest Asian CVAP and not majority, but plurality populations, and so those would be the ones that would run in 2018. But again, you'd still have the same phenomenon of the council member that lives in District 1 would either have to decide to run in 2018, otherwise risk losing her seat in 2020, not being able to run because the district is already represented. And then also the mayor would basically not be able to run unless she wanted to run as moved to Districts 1, 2, or 4, and ran as a council member, and then had the council choose her as the mayor. And it's not clear whether the term would be for a year in this rotating mayor scenario. They don't really go into any detail about that. So this appears to be the plaintiff's proposal. I don't know if the plaintiff will change its proposal, or plaintiffs will change their proposal or not. So that's the current status of what the proposals are to the court. Again, I don't expect any more information from the court until after it issues its decision. The trial will begin next Wednesday. We, I suppose, still have an opportunity to make recommendations about any or all of the maps. I think the court is looking for a sequencing solution from this committee. The committee said they would look at that tonight. I don't know if they'll be able to come up with a recommendation on sequencing tonight, but I'm here to provide any assistance you might have need of to the best of my ability. I mean, I'm dealing with things that I can't say I fully understand or maybe don't necessarily understand the intentions behind some of this. So I'll hand it over to Dr. Gobele, who will now provide some
Okay.
analysis. If you have any questions first, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. I understand that we're entering the uncharted territory, but I have questions, and I think my fellow committee members do also. Committee Member Ricosa.
Thank you. First of all, Mr. Doyle and everybody, is this the last meeting or not? We talked about, there's one scheduled the 21st. I think
There seems to be no point in having a public meeting after the court concludes the trial. So
will the trial be concluded by the 21st?
I believe so, because
Okay.
the court, based upon the information that we had in front of the court at the last case management conference, it was very clear from the Registrar of Voters that they simply could not implement a district solution past July 23rd. In other words, they would need to have the information by July 23rd. Like, they physically couldn't do it unless they had a full set of information about the districts by July 23rd.
Okay, thank you. Next question is, what is, based on your reading of being in the trial, what is the position of the city in terms of having influence or an equitable input into this process?
I really, I honestly could not speculate. I, in good faith, believe the judge's decision is completely wrong on liability, but I also believe that the judge will rule on this. I see some extremely difficult practical issues that could result from a judge's ruling even on July 23rd in terms of impacting the election negatively. And then there's also the possibility that the city might appeal the judge's decision, which would, according to my understanding of the California statutes, would result in an automatic stay of the judge's order, and which would leave the elections as they are. But I can't guarantee that stay would go into effect. At this point, I'm just speculating and providing hypothetical possibilities.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Doyle.
I'm doing the best I can, but that's all I can do at this point.
Thank you. Any other questions? I have several questions. So, so the decision will be made before July 23. How will the residents find out about the decision? What does the city plan?
Well, you know, I think that if the court issues a decision on the 23rd, depending on when a judgment is entered, the city could not appeal a judgment until it's entered by the court. I don't know what date that would be, but we'll know at least what the judge's order is when the judge issues the order. It seems like the judge believes he would have to issue an order by the 23rd, but I don't know if that's when the judge would issue the order. I just don't know.
I guess my question is,
we'll tell the people as soon as we can. Our goal is to have as much voter education as possible. The problem is we're not in control of what the actual information will be for this year's election until at least 2 weeks, I think.
So are you going to publish this on the city website?
Oh yeah, we'll get it. We'll try to get out the information as quickly as we can.
Okay, all right.
But the problem is there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of different players in this scenario, in this scene. So.
Then. All right. So my question is about my other questions are about the plaintiff's proposal. Did plaintiff mention any reason why they like to have no citywide mayoral election?
They make arguments about the current system not being compliant with the CVRA, but I don't think their argument is meritorious. But that's what they purport.
I mean, I'm sure everybody has an opinion, but my personal opinion is it's more democratic to be able to elect someone directly instead of relying on somebody else. I guess other council
Well-
members, but that's my personal opinion.
Well, we've raised the issue that the charter says that the mayor is elected by the people citywide. Clearly, that's what the charter says.
Yeah,
And the charter has no provision for the council selecting the mayor on some rotating basis. So if the court were to adopt a 7-district plan with no mayor, without the mayor being elected citywide, they would, in essence, be amending our charter, supposedly under some kind of theory that the CVRA gives the judge the power to do that.
okay, all right. I'm assuming that Dr. Gobele will be presenting demographic data for the 7 districts that they propose, so I guess I can ask. Okay, so I tried to follow Mr. Bloor, your presentation, but it's really a lot to digest. So in practical terms, with what the plaintiff is proposing, who's going to have to, which members of our council are going to have to run and
It looks like, well, the only one that would really, well, it looks like the mayor lives in one of the districts that does not being proposed to run under the plaintiff's plan
in 2018, you mean?
in 2018.
Right, okay.
So so it looks like it's 1, 2, and 4. I mean, there was the third most populous district was a little bit unclear under the statistics they submitted, so I don't know which one exactly would be, but it looked like 4 was the third most, had the third highest CVAP under what they submitted. We haven't been, perhaps Dr. Gobele has done a further analysis and she can tell you which districts would under their proposal run in 2018.
Okay.
But Councilmember Watanabe lives in District 1 under both 7-district plans. So their proposal is that the current incumbents would not run. So Councilmember Watanabe would continue to hold her seat. However, they're also saying that because District 1 is the highest Asian CVAP in the city, that should be the one that runs in 2018. So I don't know whether it's that they don't know where the council member lives, or they're just saying it's okay for 2018 that one district has 2 members representing it.
So what I'm hearing is that the only person who is not going to get to run, well, whose seat will be affected will be the mayor's, according to the...
Well,
7
Councilmember
district.
Watanabe's seat would be affected in that she could not run in 2020
Oh, right.
because the district would already be
Oh, okay, so mayor
represented by somebody else.
Mayor and Councilmember Watanabe are the 2 people
Most affected by the
most
plan.
affected. Okay, all right. So I understand the practical implications now. All right, did plaintiff say anything about ranked choice voting?
No.
Okay. The court has not said anything either, so.
Who?
The court.
In terms of what they submitted to the court, the plaintiffs have not. The plaintiffs have clearly stated several times to us that they would not accept a ranked choice voting. And ranked choice voting is not a viable alternative for 2018 anyway.
I understand. But
So
they didn't.
the court seems to be focusing primarily on what do we do this election. If we were talking about 2020, we'd have a lot more time to go through this process and decide which districts make sense. But because the plaintiff and the court appear to be focused on November 2018, that's why we're seeing some of the proposals come out the way they are.
Okay. Is it possible that the city may be put under the court oversight?
I'm not sure I know what that means. The judge does not appear interested in putting us under any kind of oversight. I mean, typically
I guess
oversight
what I mean is,
well, typically oversight involves something where the actual city staff and council members are not complying with the law somehow or need to be guided in the kind of their everyday activities. I don't know whether the court may retain jurisdiction of this matter, whether they'll issue perhaps a preliminary injunction for 2018 and then retain jurisdiction for some kind of injunctive relief for 2020. I have no idea what the court's going to do.
I guess my question is, will we need to get court approval on how we conduct our 2020 election? And
I couldn't answer that question.
Right, okay, I understand. Thank you very much. All right,
Okay.
Dr. Gobele.
Thank you. I'm going to go very quickly through material that's been covered in the previous public hearings, and I will skip saying the same things that Brian has already said. Excuse me, I want to move the mic so I can look at you, look at the audience while I talk. I'm going to talk about the demographic data that demographers use in drawing election districts and show you a couple of background maps that you've seen before if you've been coming to the hearings or looked online for information about the process. I will show you a few more things about the draft plans 1 and 3, both the 6 and 3 council district versions of them. And I'll talk about some plans submitted by city residents. And after that, I will talk about the 7 district plans. One was submitted by a city resident, and the other 2 are the plaintiff's maps that Brian already showed you. We are bound by a couple of legal requirements here in any kind of districting work. The first requirement is that the districts be essentially equal in total population using the latest census data, which are from 2010. And the measure of population equality is called planned deviation, total planned deviation, which is expressed as a percentage, and planned deviation should not exceed 10%. According to what I understand the courts to have ruled. The second legal requirement comes from the Federal Voting Rights Act, which establishes certain protected classes of people that historically were the targets of discrimination when it came to election practices and voting practices, as I understand it. And the measure we use to evaluate whether plans meet Federal Voting Rights Act requirements are from the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, which is an ongoing survey of households in the United States. And the latest data we have are from 2012 to 2016, a 5-year period. So keep in mind that these data, as with the 2010 census data, are rather old, but we don't have an alternative. There aren't more recent data that we can use. Ideally, we'd know what the total population was of every little piece of the city right now and what the race-ethnic mix was in every little piece of the city, but we don't. So we're making do with a couple of measures that everyone has to use until we have a new census. After 2020 census data are released in 2021, the boundaries can be redrawn to balance the populations again, and there will be new American Community Survey data to use in evaluating compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. The State Elections Code has something to say about criteria to use in districting, and there may be other criteria not particularly defined, but that might be important for particular jurisdictions. And these are traditional districting criteria. These are established in the State Elections Code. And when my company, when we draw plans, we try to take all of these things into account. And in addition, we try to use recognizable geographical features as boundaries of election districts, like major thoroughfares, railroads, water features like creeks, and other identifiable features. And I believe that the feedback I've heard from the community over the last, well, since nearly the beginning of this year, have focused on the desire to have boundaries that are understandable, that are easily identified. This map is one that I've shown every hearing, and this is the Census 2010 distribution of the city's population by race, ethnicity, and the pie charts show each of the race ethnic groups of interest. This map is on the city's website, and I know you can't see what the legend says or what the pies show here, but you can go online and see this map and zoom in on it. The pie chart colors include the aqua color, the light blue color for non-Hispanic Asian, which is the largest protected group in Santa Clara. The Hispanic population is much smaller, and it's a different color. I can't remember right now what color it is. Dark blue. This map shows the CVAP, or citizen voting age population, which is, as I said before, the measure used to evaluate compliance with the Federal Voting Rights Act. And this map shows the estimated citizen voting age population by race ethnicity, and the size of the pie represents the size of the population. These are estimates for individual census blocks, the smallest pieces of territory that can be combined to make election districts. Error margins for these estimates are pretty large, and there are different ways of measuring CVAP, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later because it's relevant to understanding the plaintiff's plans, as well as the other ones you'll see. Right, there are, as Brian said, draft plans 1 and 3 that come in 6 council district and 3 council district versions. And the 3 council district versions are shown on the far left on this wall to your right. And the red boundaries show the combinations of 2 districts that make a single council district with 2 seats in each plan. And the next set of 2 maps show draft plans 1 and 2, the 6th district version. The 6th district version is shown in the first 2 maps too, but if you want to see it by itself, it's in the next one. So the 6th district draft plans 1 and 3 also come in 3 district versions, where there are 3 pairs of intact districts from the 6th district version. The maps Brian showed you already, and he discussed incumbency and how it affects on election cycles. So the only thing I wanted to point out is draft plans 1 and 3 are alike, except the boundary between districts 1 and 2. The boundary between districts 1 and 2 is different. You can probably see that from where you're sitting. The district 1 and 2 in the left-hand most maps, the boundary is ought to be different. They look the same here. I think there's a problem. Draft plan 2.
is not
No, okay. I'm sorry, draft plan 3. We have draft plan 1 and draft plan 3. Nothing's wrong with those maps. Something's wrong with me. Just in both draft plans 1 and 3, districts 1 and 2 are identical. It's the other 3 districts that differ from each other. And I'd like you to notice in draft plan 1, the southern area of the maps differ. And I'll explain what these differences include in a minute. This is the data table for draft plan 1, the 6th district version. And the red circles show the citizen voting age population shares for Asians in the first column. The rows in this table are for the district numbers, and this column shows that in draft plan 1, district 1 is 51% Asian citizen voting age population. Of the total estimated eligible voter population, 51% are Asians. And this is important because the courts have said that 51% CVAP share is in at least some cases what it takes for a district to respect the potential for members of protected groups to elect representatives of their choice. So in both plans 1 and 3, District 1 is identical, and so in both plans in District 1, there is an Asian CVAP majority. This other red oval shows that District 2 has a fairly large Latino share of the eligible voters, the citizen voting age population. So in draft plan 1, there's one Asian CVAP majority district. And that's all. There are other districts that have fairly large Asian citizen voting age population shares. And if you look at the table on page 5 of the handout for my presentation, you probably can read these numbers. Or maybe you can borrow a magnifying glass from somebody sitting near you, but I can read them. And you can see that none of the other districts has an Asian CVAP share of more than 33%. Only District 1 has a definite Asian citizen voting age population majority. This is draft plan 1's 3 council district version. And Brian already talked about this on what's open for election this year. So I won't go over that material again, but it shows on this slide as well as the one he showed. And these are the data for the 3 district version of draft plan 1. On all the plans I'm showing you have less than 10% population deviation. So they all meet the population equality requirement. And I don't think that the differences in the total deviation, and in this case, the percent deviation is 6.6%, I don't think that this is significant. But what we do have here that's worth noticing is when we combine districts 1 and 2 to make a council district, the Asian share of CVAP is 38%, and the non-Hispanic white share is 39%. So they're probably within the margin of error virtually the same, but the Asians do not have a majority because when you combine districts 1 and 2, you have a stronger Asian CVAP share district and a weaker one, and when you combine the 2, the number comes down. It's nowhere near 51%. That's a drawback of 3 district plans. They may raise some Federal Voting Rights Act issues, at least in my non-legal experience as a demographer and working with these laws and attorneys and lots of districting projects. But I think that this is a potential problem with 3 district plans in my experience. All right, here's draft plan 3. Again, districts 1 and 2 are identical to what's in draft plan 1, but the treatment of the southern part of the city, we have a district 6 that stretches the whole breadth or the width of the southernmost part of the city. That's a significant point that was made at last Thursday's public hearing, and I'll show you a map that I did to make a point that was raised last Thursday. That is the southernmost district here, which is actually not District 6, it's District 7. Takes in, no, that it is District 6 district plan, I'm sorry. I've been dealing with these numbers so much. District 6. District 6, the light blue color is Cupertino Union School District, the piece of it that's in the city, and the pink in the lower right-hand part of the city at the southeast is the Campbell Union Elementary School District, and all the rest of it is the Santa Clara Unified School District, which has boundaries extending beyond the city limits. But in any event, the reason that I'm showing you this map is that sometimes school districts form what are called communities of interest. That is, people who live in the same community of one sort or another, like a school district, may feel that they have that interest in common. So that's a feature of Draft Plan 3 that you don't see in Draft Plan 1, because in Draft Plan 1, you don't have the clear distinction of including those two different smaller school districts in one single council district. All right. I listened to the critique that was made last week at Thursday's hearing of one particular part of Draft Plan 3, and that was this particular area, which uses minor streets as boundaries. So I found a neat fix for it, shown where the arrow is pointing, by moving the district from the minor streets to San Tomas Expressway and Benton Street, which are much more recognizable boundaries. So I found I could make a repair in response to public feedback last Thursday to Draft Plan 3. The courts did not see this, but I just wanted to show you that I was doing my homework for you.
Thank you.
Because public input's really important. And
I think the city has been really great incorporating the feedback. Yeah. Thank you.
I did not give you a data table for that revised version of Draft Plan 3 because the numbers aren't significantly different. It doesn't affect the CVAP shares in any important way, or I think the deviation is identical. So I didn't bother to make a table for you. This is the data for Draft Plan 3. And once again, here is that 51% District 1 Asian CVAP share. And District 2, same District 2, 27% Latino. Here's the 3-district version. That's the second map from the left on your right side on the wall. And Brian already went through the election sequencing information about which seats might be up for election this fall. And once again, the 3-district version of the draft plan does not have an Asian CVAP majority share. District 1, which is District 1 plus 2, which is the same as in Draft Plan 1, is 38%. And the white CVAP share, non-Hispanic white CVAP share, is 39%. So once again, this might be a Voting Rights Act question that might be raised about the 3-district plans. Okay, now we have some maps submitted by community members, and various plans were submitted, but I could not analyze them all for various reasons, and some of them were incomplete or not contiguous. That is, they had part of a district here and part of one of them there was something in between, which I do not believe is desirable, or they had high deviations. And I did analyze the 7-district version of one of the plans received. I couldn't do the other one. And the 2 community member 6-district plans were submitted by Kevin Park and Diane Harrison. I apologize if anyone else submitted a plan, but these are the only ones that I saw that I could analyze for you. And if you have questions about a particular other plan that you submitted, feel free to ask me after the meeting or anytime about that. So this is Diane Harrison's 6-district proposal. It features a different District 1-2 configuration. You see where the line is, the boundary between Districts 1 and 2 in the north. And District 2 starts in the northwestern corner of the city and then extends through really a single point into this part of the north of El Camino area. I think that that might be something that people would criticize about the plan, but anyway, that's a characteristic. It might make sense, but I just needed to point it out. The Asian share in District 1 of CVAP is 51%, plan deviation 7.5%. So this is an alternative to draft plans 1 and 2 with the same Federal Voting Rights Act status as far as I can evaluate it. And then Kevin Park submitted a 6th district proposal, and he used a different District 1-2 configuration. This is different from Diane Harrison's plan and different from draft plans 1 and 2. Otherwise, his plan is like draft plan 1. So both the community 6th district plans are like draft plans 1 and 3, except for the treatment of districts 1 and 2. And this table shows the election sequencing data where each incumbent lives in each of the 2 draft plans. Now we turn to the 7 district plans. Various plans were submitted, but one of them I couldn't analyze because it was incomplete. Its deviation was too high, and I couldn't figure out how to fix it without more information about what the person had in mind when drawing the plan. So the only 7 district plan submitted by a community member that I saw was from Kevin Park. And this is what his plan looks like. Now, this is what he provided. And the deviation of this plan was too high, something like 21%, because he only had pieces to work with. And the pieces, as many people have pointed out, that I designed for putting together 6 district plans are too big to allow you to balance populations well. So his plan had an extra high deviation, plus District 7 is not contiguous. Here's one piece of District 7, and the rest of District 7 is here. So I thought that maybe I could give his plan a try, because I could see a way to fix it or to balance it. And so I redrew the boundary between Districts 1 and 2 and between 4, 5, and 6 in order to balance the population. So I'm going to switch back to the original and then the fix. And if I go back and forth a couple more times, maybe you can see which boundaries changed. And I'm sorry, this didn't make it into the handout for tonight, but it will be posted on the district's website. The adjusted version of his plan has an acceptable deviation, total deviation of, what was it? 7.9%. And again, he has a District 1 Asian CVAP majority, 51%. It's a different version of District 1, but it does still have that Asian CVAP majority. Now, the plaintiff's plans submitted to the court last Friday, and I got them, I think it was on Saturday. So I had a fun weekend recreating the plaintiff's plans, and was able to do that. 7 council districts with relatively equal populations, and both of the plans use some major thoroughfares and also some small streets. And creeks are used more extensively in these 2 plans than in the plans that I drew. But there is an issue. Although I could match his census 2010 counts, the plaintiff's census 2010 counts, as far as population totals go, I could not match his CVAP estimates, and I'm still working on trying to figure out why the estimates I've made and his don't match, but I don't have quite enough information about what data source he used for his numbers. And remember, I said a little while ago that citizen voting age population estimates have margins of error, and there are different ways of estimating it. So I'm sorry I can't report to you anything really precise about that yet. I think it'll take me a few more days to investigate all the possible explanations. All right, this is the original first 7-district proposal, and that map is the second from the right-hand end of the series of maps over there. And in particular, I wanted to point out a couple of boundaries. This boundary here between districts 1 and 2, and then the configuration of District 3 in the southwestern part of the city. The total deviation of the plan is 6.5%. And here are the numbers that he reported, that the plaintiff's demographer reported for this plan. He reported that the citizen voting age population shares for District 1 in this plan were 50.5% Asian CVAP, which is very like the draft plans 1 and 2, 6-district plans. And then there's a second Asian district, not with a majority, but with a plurality, the 44.9% Asian share of the total CVAP in District 3. And going back to the map, I believe that in my experience, when you have boundaries like these, they tend to be the result of trying to maximize the share of a particular group in a particular district. So I think that might be the philosophy, or one of the philosophies behind this map, but I don't know that for sure. I will tell you what the incumbency situation is for this plan. The District 1 has an incumbent whose term expires in 2020. District 2 has no incumbent, and each of the other 5 districts has an incumbent. District 3 has an incumbent with a 2020 expiration date. District 4 has an incumbent whose term expires this year, so District 4 could be open for election this year. District 5 has an incumbent whose term expires in 2020. And District 6 is where the mayor lives. Her term expires this year, so that district could be open for election this year. And District 7 has an incumbent whose terms expire in 2020. So for this plan, District 2 has no incumbent. It could be up for election this year. If there were three districts up for election this year, it could be District 2 also up for election this year. We could have Districts 4 and 6. Now I'm shifting to the second plaintiff plan, which is the farthest right map on the bulletin board. It's over there to your right. This map's configuration is a little bit different. Boundary between Districts 1 and 2, and a different configuration of the districts in this part of the city, the southwestern part of the city. This plan's deviation is 4.6%. And just one second. And here is the data table for this plaintiff's alternative plan. And in this plan, the plaintiff's demographer says District 1 has a 49.6% Asian CVAP share, and District 4 has 42 0.2% Asian CVAP share, which is a plurality again. So the plaintiff's plans, I believe, are designed to create 2 districts that have high Asian CVAP concentrations in them. That's my evaluation of what characterizes these plans and makes them different from the other plans that I've talked about. The total deviation, 4.6%, I think. And the total deviation of the first plaintiff plan is 6.5%. Oops. I wanted to tell you the election sequencing information. In this plan, we have incumbents living in all the districts except for District 2. So District 2 could be elected this year. District 1 has an incumbent whose term expires in 2020. District Sorry, I'm missing a council member here. My map that I'm beg your pardon, I wish I was better prepared. Well, thank you.
Yeah, amazing job.
These numbers kill me. I'm sorry. Missing. Yeah. Okay, sorry. There's no incumbent in, but we have 6 members of the council. I'm trying to figure out who's missing on my map here. And but there's no incumbent in 2, and I don't see any in 4, but I don't see where the pairing is. There are five incumbents. Well, yeah, sure, okay. Districts 2 and 4 could be elected this year. And the other ones that could be elected this year, districts 5 and 6, because their incumbents expire this year as well. So the sequencing issues with this plan are a little bit different from the other ones. And I'll need to double check that because I'm not sure I have it right, because we actually have six incumbents counting the mayor. So somehow my map isn't showing 6, is only showing 5 of them. So that's all I have to tell you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about anything.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions? No? Okay, so do the 7 district boundaries, do they conform to the pieces that you've used, Dr. Gobele?
Not the plaintiff's maps, no.
Oh, okay.
The community members' 6 district plans are built of pieces. The Kevin Park 7 district plan is made of census blocks, just like the plaintiff's plans are. Because when you get to 7 council districts, you have to use the smaller pieces of geography in order to get the deviation to an acceptable level.
Okay, and let's see. All right. Do you have any opinions on how stable these 7 district boundaries will be coming 2020 census results?
I can guarantee you that the boundaries have to be adjusted.
You think?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. The 6 district plan boundaries would have to be adjusted too, because there's no way of taking into account all of the post-2010 housing growth population in these plans. When you get above about 2 districts or maybe 3, you can't avoid having to redraw boundaries, and sometimes in really significant ways, because the population growth has been quite uneven. And in fact, there's a hidden slide that I could show you again. I need to get back to the place where I can pick out a hidden slide to show them. this PowerPoint, but I need to not ignore my computer. In this PowerPoint, there's some hidden slides, and I'd like to show. Okay, thank you. This is a map that you have seen before. This is Draft Plan 1-6 Council Districts. This is the estimated post-2010 population from growth from new housing. And this plan's deviation using our estimate of the population from new housing is 11.2%. So if we want to evaluate how well this plan would endure post-2020 census, it wouldn't. Probably the deviation would be higher than 11.2% because of other population shifts in the city. And then,
So 10% of 6-district block is around, what, 1,400 population? 10% deviation is equal to how many people again? About 1,400 people?
in the 6-district plans, it's around 1,900 people.
1,900. With
And
7-district, how
In
many?
7 districts, around 1,600 people.
1,600, okay.
That's the total permitted deviation, the span between the absolute value of the smallest and the largest districts.
Okay, thank you.
And then this map shows draft plan 3 with those same estimated post-2010 census population growth symbols, and that plan's deviation, taking into account the estimated population living in new housing, is 12%. So
Okay.
for the 7-district plan, I'm sure there'd have to be big adjustments.
Big
Any of the
adjustment.
7-district plans.
Right,
The fewer districts you have, the easier it is to have enduring boundaries.
right. Okay, thank you. Thank you for making that point. Okay, any other questions? I can't think of any. Oh, okay, great, thank you. Do you have any more presentation from the staff? Then should we move on to the public speakers? Okay, all right. So we're going to open this meeting to public testimony. You're encouraged to fill out the speaker card if you like. Otherwise, I'm just going to call each person one at a time. Each person is allotted 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes, and you can see here how much time you have. Okay, the first person is Amy Nguyen. And the next person is Jeannie Mahan. So if you can sort of, get ready to speak.
Good evening, committee members and community members. My name is Amy Nguyen. I live a little bit north of 101 near Rivermark, and I have been a Santa Clara resident for over 15 years. I just wanted to address some points, one that Mr. Doyle made earlier. And I just feel like the conversation misses the point a little bit because right now the purpose of redistricting is about representation. He had mentioned he didn't know the intention of the plaintiffs, and I feel like the intention is about representing the people of Santa Clara. The city had submitted drafts, and this is the first time I've seen the drafts, but preliminarily from what I see, the city's draft plan one of the districts, District 1, that they keep addressing and circling in red is that District 1 has 51% Asian Americans. But then they fail to mention that all other 5 districts will have a plurality of the white population. One was District 2 will have 42%, District 3 will have 46%, District 4 will have 50%, District 5, 60%, District 6, 67%. And so out of all those districts, one district has 51% Asians. But for me, it's not about being Asian or white. For me, it's about it's about representation and making sure that the residents are heard. So I agree with the previous speaker who had spoken during the public comment that having more districts is about democracy, about connecting the representatives with our people and making sure that the representatives have the same concerns and lifestyles as the districts that they're representing. And so after reviewing the maps, I am in full support of the 7 district maps from the plaintiffs, because we have to remember that this is about representation and understanding the issues of the people within those districts. Thank you.
Thank you. And how do you feel about not being able to directly elect the mayor?
I actually have no comments about that because I feel like I don't fully understand what the plaintiff said or what was said within the court. So I don't want to have an opinion about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next person is Jeannie Mahan, and after that is Teresa Salser.
Good evening, and thank you. My name is Jeannie Mahan, and I've lived in the city of Santa Clara now for almost 70 years, born and raised here. And it used to be a small town where everybody knew each other. We all went to school together. We conducted our businesses together. And never, ever did we imagine then that we would be the center of high tech and grow to the population we have today. In those olden days, our city council worked well. As I said, everyone knew each other, where you lived, who your parents were, where your phone number were, where you could hide out. Everyone knew all that. But today, it's a really very different world. It's an exciting and it's a diverse population as never could have been imagined. And our outdated voting system no longer represents our city. We've become a different place with populations from all ethnic groups. And for this reason, I feel it's time, more than time, to divide our city into 7 districts for city council voting. Districts would add to the diversity of our council, which is long overdue. It would also be good to know your city council member on a personal level. Your city council member would be your neighbor. It would take us back to the small town feeling we used to have. It's very important that these districts be small. That is the only way the council person would be familiar with your neighborhood and your specific issues. You could call your council member. They would know where you live. They would know your concerns, and they would be able to help you on a personal level. I've reviewed the 7 district map submitted by the plaintiffs, and I find it to be an excellent way to divide our city. These 7 districts are fair, they're equitable, and they represent all the ethnic populations. And as to the mayor, it's only recently relatively recently in my lifetime, we always had a rotating member from the city council. Electing the mayor is a relatively newer process for our city. I just wanted to point that out. For all these reasons, though, I think it's very important that 7 district voting become a reality for our city, and soon. It is definitely the best plan, and I think we should go with the 7 districts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a quick question to the staff. When was the charter change made for citywide mayor election?
I don't know exactly, but I had a conversation with Mayor Gilmore, and she said it was her father, which I think he was the mayor in the 60s or 70s, that advocated going to a citywide elected mayor. So I'm not sure exactly when it was, but certainly in the time I've lived here, which is 25 years, it has always been a citywide. Well, actually, I moved here in 1991, so at least the last 25 or 26 years, it's been citywide elections. So.
And if I may, it looks like I have a charter here, and it looks like it may have been the November 5th, 1968 election.
1968, so I wouldn't call that a recent change. I mean,
No,
it's been
I
more
wouldn't call that
than
recent.
50 years, okay. I mean, our city's what, 150 years old? And excuse me, but you're done speaking. Thank you.
Can I just make a comment? I feel kind of put upon that my comments are being commented
But I've been, Ms. Mahan, I've been asking questions about each speaker for the last 3 meetings, so I'm not singling you out, just on the record. I've been asking questions on each point that each speaker raises, just to make sure that everybody understands this is an open forum and that people's input are respected and deliberated appropriately. Thank you. All right, Ms. Teresa
Yes, Sulzer. So I just want to reiterate what I had said earlier about going to smaller districts will improve democracy, and this is what it should be about. It shouldn't be about trying to make it easier for any one group to get elected, but to have the best representation from the different districts so that our council can work for everybody in the city collectively. I personally would be an advocate of having an elected mayor where the whole city together has one representative that represents the collection of everybody within the city. And I think that going forward, what's going to be really important is to engage in a process of public communication in as unbiased a way as possible so that people can see the benefits for everyone in making this really major change to how our city is run, because I do think it will benefit everybody, but I think that there's a lot of potential for people to get polarized and confused, and that would be really a shame. So I think the public education aspect is going to become increasingly important. And to that end, I know you had said that there's probably no point in having the meeting next week at the on the North Side Library, but even just for an informational session, since it's on people's calendars now, I would advocate that you still plan on attending it, because a lot of people in the North Side find it hard to get over here. It's on their calendar, and you can use it as an outreach of, you know, where we stand. So.
Thank you. I agree with Teresa about a need to do outreach. I don't know if you have the city will have a lot of information by the 21st, but could it be conceivable to have a outreach meeting after we have the judgment, for example?
Well, I think that makes sense to have it after we know what's going to happen. But I wouldn't want to keep the 21st on calendar knowing that we probably won't know what will happen.
Okay, so maybe when we do the outreach, we can have it at
Right.
North Side, since all the other meetings have been
Right.
down on the south. Okay, all right, let's keep that in mind. Oh, okay, I forgot to mention, Steve Cohn is the next speaker, and after that is Rob Jerdonek.
Yes, members of the ad hoc committee, my name's Steve Kwan, and I've lived in Santa Clara since 1961, and I went away for 30 years for my job and came back during retirement. With all due respect to the plaintiff who brought the lawsuit, I think he thought that there was some type of invidious discrimination against Asian Americans. I really personally don't feel that way. It's just that the reason why there hasn't been an Asian American on the city council of Santa Clara is just the way it worked out. However, his proposal to divide the city into 7 districts, I think is good in the sense that if we have these smaller districts, instead of voting at large for our city council members, the city council members will be more accountable to the people in the respective district. In regards to the mayoral race, I think we should have a mayoral at-large election, because we need somebody with oversight to look at the city as a whole, instead of having a rotating mayor from each individual district who would probably be more accountable to his respective district than the city at large. As far as the way the city districts would be cut up or gerrymandered, we're not like cities like New York City or San Francisco that have ethnic enclaves. We don't have a Little Italy. We don't even have a Chinatown. Maybe perhaps we have a Koreatown on El Camino Real, but those are businesses. Those aren't urban areas where one ethnicity lives. So that's why it's pretty hard to carve up a district that is a majority of Asian Americans, because we're all spread out. Because fortunately, our city didn't steer people to certain neighborhoods to form these enclaves. So the best we could do with a district is 51% Asian Americans. And even then, we're not guaranteed that an Asian American's going to be representative of that 51% district. You know, I don't know about my fellow members of the city here, but you know, I tend to vote on beliefs or how they feel about certain issues. I don't look at somebody and say, well, he's Asian, I'm going to vote for him. When S.I. Hayakawa ran for U.S. Senate in '76, I didn't vote for him because he was Asian. I voted for John Tunney. But Tunney lost, but you know, it's the way it is. So I think but in order to appease the court, we're gonna have to cut up the districts anyway. But that's how I feel. Thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you very much. Okay, next person is Roger Jerdonek, and followed by Anthony Becker.
Hi, my name is Rob Jordanek. I'm a Santa Clara resident. I have reviewed all of the draft maps. It looks like what we need is an interim solution for November 2018 to satisfy the time frame demanded by the courts. Since the court system likely wants to see 6 single-member districts, we are probably stuck with, the court wants to see single-member districts, we are probably stuck with 6 or 7 districts. For November 2018, as an interim solution, I would choose Draft Plan 1, the 6-district plan. The 7 district maps drawn by the plaintiffs are not acceptable. Only one of the maps has an Asian CVAP higher than 50%. At 50.5%, it does no better than the 6-district map that I just recommended. So in terms of minority representation, there would be no advantage to the 7 districts over 6. This 7-district map from the plaintiffs we're talking about actually splits the Rivermark neighborhood where I live on the north side. Rivermark was specifically designed as a master planned community with a common park, shopping center, library, and school. For the past several months, the plaintiffs have been touting their, quote, neighborhood plan. Only now do we actually get to see their map this week. And what I see is that it splits up my neighborhood, the Rivermark neighborhood. So the person who drew this map has obviously never even set foot in Santa Clara, definitely not in my neighborhood. District 3 doesn't look like a neighborhood either. It looks like a serpent slithering along the west side of the city. Next, if we really want to improve the minority representation on the city council, this districting alone will not solve the problem. We actually need candidates to run for these seats, and we want to encourage many candidates to run. I've actually talked to some potential candidates to ask if they are planning to run for office in November, and they told me, of course, they need to wait and see if their district is even having an election. They also told me that they need to see who else is running for the office. A major reason is that they're actually worried about vote splitting. If multiple minority candidates run for office in a single district, they could easily just split the vote among each other, and the incumbent would still win. The way to solve this issue of vote splitting is ranked choice voting. For 2020, at least, we need to seriously consider how ranked choice voting can be used. That is one way we can help ensure that multiple minority candidates can be encouraged to run for office in each district, not just one. The city and the court need to ensure that ranked choice voting can be allowed in 2020, which is the year that the election equipment can support it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Anthony Becker, followed by Carolyn Schuck.
All right. Good evening. I'm Anthony Becker, and I'll be speaking mostly some of my points I've had, and also Kevin Park, since he can't be here tonight. He starts with a statement of, the problem with the district process starts with the tools the city provided with the citizens to get involved. While Dr. Goble marvels at the masterpiece she has put together in the Excel spreadsheets, it was hardly intuitive and prevented many people from getting involved. In addition, the pieces of the map that Dr. Goble defined were too large to put together nicely. Even though that there were a lot of pieces, they could only go together in specific ways, which made many of the maps look similar, if not exactly the same. You have to compare and contrast the maps presented by the city of Santa Clara to the maps of the plaintiffs. produced to see the difference. Anyone who worked on maps would see that this is very quickly. It is almost as if nobody played around with the maps for more than 10 minutes before giving it to the residents. For example, we have pieces that are 16,000 people in size to create districts in the order of 18,000 people. Those pieces could only go together in specific ways without making the map look even worse than the simple default maps the city provided. People have stated that 7 districts is too many for a city the size of Santa Clara. The other solution is that we cut our city council down to 5 members instead of 7. If you go to californiademographics.com, you look at the cities that are similar to Santa Clara in population, and you can see that they all have 5 council members, including a mayor. Lastly, just as the ad hoc committee who makes the decisions on the districts has waived their right to run for city council for 5 years, perhaps we should make all committee members involved in this process waive their right, including charter review committee members who proposed and contributed districting in the first place, along with many other changes that affected our voting process. Once again, these are the statements of mine and Kevin Park. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In defense of Dr. Gourbalet, I think she did an excellent job given the time constraint, and she saw the problems with Kevin Park's 7-district proposal. She went out of her way to try to augment it so that it would comply with some of the other legal parameters. So I'd like to make sure that Dr. Gourbalet's efforts are recognized in spite of the criticisms heard just now. Any other member who has a comment about? Okay, Committee Member Estrada.
I just had a quick question for Brian. So the committee that came before us that voted on doing districts, did they not sign a waiver?
Are you talking about the Charter Review Committee? I don't believe they did.
Okay.
I don't think that was a requirement.
Okay. So I just want to make it clear to the public, this committee signed waivers that we would not participate in running for any public office for at least 5 years, as well as there was a secondary commitment that we would not contribute to campaigns. Right. So the 3 of us signed a waiver that we would not run for public office for 5 years, nor would we contribute financially support to any candidate that would run within the first 5 years. So I just wanted to clarify that and, have that information out there for you.
Thank you, Committee Member Estrada.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Committee Member.
To clarify, we only said we would not run for city council in the city of Santa Clara, so.
Oh, okay. Well,
but also,
you can run for president still.
Yeah.
Yes, I can run for president, yes. But my just comment is the issue of whatever the Charter Review Committee did is basically of no consequence now because this is imposed on us by the court. So we have no other choice. So, whatever they did at this point
and
is
in
history.
that regard, just because we're receiving criticism for how we're doing this process, we're doing this process because the court is ordering us to do this process. And I specifically pointed out to the court that when we did the previous districting process, which was for a much simpler goal, which was just drawing one line across the city, it took us 5 months to get effective input. And I pointed that out to the court. I said, you could hardly get effective public input through this truncated 4-meeting or 3-meeting process to draw, we don't even know how many districts in this kind of a time frame. So we're doing the best we can. We are complying with the court's order. The court's order said we can make best efforts. We are making our best efforts. And I think it is appropriate for the public to make input as to the various proposals and what has merit, what doesn't have merit, but I don't think it's appropriate for the public to criticize city staff or our consultants in terms of how well we're able to process this information and provide information back. We really are doing the best we can, and I don't think any kind of statements about our efforts is really appropriate. I'm a resident just like all of you. I have my own opinions about what should happen. I'm keeping those opinions to myself. But I am doing the best I can as a fellow resident to provide you with as much fair and legal information as I can.
And I for one, really appreciate all the efforts that people who have worked on this project have put in.
And
Yes,
just,
Committee Member Estrada,
well, I just
I'm
want to
sorry,
follow up
Ricosa.
on my comment is, unlike the first time when we created the map for Measure A, what we're doing here is not binding. All we can do, nothing is binding, it's just what we are going to ask the court to do, which, right, unlike the first time. So we're not doing anything binding tonight, unfortunately.
Thank you, Committee Member Estrada.
Thank you. I'm going to take a couple minutes here, or a minute, and just clarify some things, because we have to sit here and hear your comments and the positive comments and what your concerns are. But I don't think we ever took a minute to tell you about us. So I've been a resident, so I'm going to take that minute. I've been a resident in the city of Santa Clara for 39 years. I retired from the state with a 40-year career, and I have served on the senior commission for the past 7 years, and I am currently the chair of the senior commission for the city of Santa Clara. I do volumes of volunteer work with California State retirees. So that's just a little bit about me. And when they approached me and said, do you have a time commitment? Could you please, commit this time? And I said, yes, I would love to do this for my city. So I just wanted to put that out there in case any of you were curious, how did we get here? So that's how I got here.
And thank you, Committee Member Estrada. And, we've been making big accommodations, just like the staff member here, to attend the 4 meetings, to make sure that we comply with the court's order. So I too am a volunteer. I also serve on the Planning Commission as a chair, and I'm doing this as a volunteer, in hopes of serving the community. Okay, would you like to?
Yes, I'm a 30-year resident of Santa Clara. I currently serve on the Library Board of Trustees, and I've been very active in the Santa Clara community for all those years.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Okay, the next speaker is Carolyn Shuck, followed by Patty Card.
And Carolyn, we're sorry we make you stand up all that time.
Picard, yeah. Oh, Picard, okay, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, committee members. And let me just say that I very much appreciate your making yourselves available to hear comments and to answer questions, of which there are many.
Thank you.
Because we seem to be making a testimonial when we speak here, I've lived in the city of Santa Clara for 35 years and been a homeowner for 31, because that seems to be a relevant point to, and a registered voter for 35 years. I have 3 questions, and I will give you my questions and you can answer them at your leisure. First, why hasn't the city given the court a 7-district plan as part of its response? Because many people who have attended these meetings have asked for that. The second question is, why has the city first presented a 2-district plan that was defeated by the voters? And second, a 3-district plan that was never discussed until one person brought it up at a meeting last week? That's the second question. And the third question is, have any committee members been lobbied by any outside advocacy group, political committee, and if so, by whom? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so maybe I can have the staff answer the first 2 questions, but I believe that those questions have already been addressed during the previous committee meetings. And Ms. Shuck, you cover our city for your paper, so I'm sure you're well aware of this information, but let's go over them again. Staff member, would you like to answer the first 2 questions?
The 7-district plan violates the charter. We believe that it would be a violation of the charter, and we also believe that it's not, the court order did not find that the mayoral election was produced by racially polarized voting. And we also do not believe that there's any provision in the CVRA that requires an amendment of the charter by the judiciary in response to finding that some of the council districts may have had racially polarized voting. So that's why the city is not submitting a 7-district plan. You know, throughout this entire process, I have responded to the plaintiffs that, you know, as the city attorney, I'm required to follow the charter of the city. The charter has not been amended. And until the court orders the charter to be amended, I have to follow the charter. And it's an extremely radical thing for a judge to tell a charter city you can no longer elect your mayor at large when that's what your charter says. And I don't believe that the court's ruling to date requires us to submit a 7-district plan, which would inherently require abolition of the mayor as a citywide elective office.
Thank
So
you.
those are the reasons why a 7-district plan has not been submitted. It's very undemocratic for a small group of plaintiffs to attempt to amend a city charter via a lawsuit, and I think that that's a very serious matter for a judge to consider. The second question, I believe, had to do with why did the committee submit the different maps last week. That was because the committee had no.
Why did we have to?
Well, it was your choice. I mean, you chose to submit 5 maps because those were the 5 maps you had in front of you at the time. That's just my recollection of what happened. It was pretty simple. You did not make any recommendations. You just simply said, these are the 5 maps we've been considering. The judge ordered the city to have these hearings. These were the 5 maps that were considered. You couldn't come to any consensus as to which one you would recommend. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like it was your decision to just simply submit the 5 maps you had received at the time.
And that previously we put two districts on a Measure A ballot because that's what the Charter Review Committee recommended.
Right. I mean,
right?
the answer with the 2-district map is it's the only map that complies with the state law. The election code, section 12-226, says you can only have a district election with boundaries that have been established 125 days prior to the election. That was, in fact, established 125 days prior to the election by your previous work and by our submittal to the Registrar of Voters. So we have all the information the Registrar of Voters needs within 125 days. So we wanted to submit what we believe would be a legal remedy for the court to enact, if it feels it must enact a district plan. The 2-district plan was 2 single-member districts elected for 1 election with boundaries that had been established in accordance with state law. None of these maps that we have right now comply with the Government Code Section 12-226, and I don't understand how anyone thinks that those maps could possibly be legal under the state law, but that's what the judge asked us to do, so we're doing it.
And no one ever proposed 3-district map, and that's why we haven't considered until now.
Well, no, there was a 3-district map proposed. You proposed 5 maps, two
at the last meeting.
2 6-district maps, 2 3-district maps, and 1 2-district map is what you told us to give to the court.
Right.
The 3-district maps were suggested by, I think it was a member of the public, Mr. Hagag, proposed combining 2 districts so that you'd have two 3-district maps is what he proposed.
Before that, I don't remember anyone ever mentioning 3-district. I don't think we ever considered 3-district map.
Yes, you
I
did.
think.
You did.
Did we?
We did.
Yeah.
We did.
Okay.
Okay.
You didn't
all right.
see them. You didn't see them, but you did say we will submit 5 maps.
Oh, well,
last
I
meeting.
mean, before the last meeting.
Before the last meeting, no.
No, that's what I'm
It
talking
was
about.
it was Mr. Hagag's suggestion
Right.
that led to that
Okay.
idea.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's see now. The third question is, has anyone been approached by
I want to address
lobbyists?
number 2 first.
And so, Committee Member Estrada, maybe you can address the two questions, lobbying and the number of districts.
Okay. And I think you're correct that one of the audience members suggested a 3-member map. And at that point, it was late in the evening. We were trying, from my perspective, I wanted to give the judge as much information, as many options as possible. So we asked Dr. Gobele if she could pull that data together, knowing that it's an enormous task to ask her to do it that evening and have it ready for the court on Friday morning. So from my perspective, I wanted to see if it gave a better CBAP to the Asian community in percentages, because we didn't have the data. So I thought it was worth presenting as much information to the judge as possible. And what I realized after looking at the data that were presented today, it's probably not in our best interest to submit a 3-district map. So that's my personal recollection of how we got there. In regards to question number 3, lobbying, no one has approached me or attempted to approach me. And the 3 of us, because our committee is small, are bound by the Brown Act. We cannot even speak to each other outside of this room. So when we come here, I have no idea what Yuki's thinking or what Steve's thinking. So that makes it very difficult. So everything you hear is the first time that it's ever been discussed between the 3 of us to come together and make some kind of recommendation. So I know, Steve.
Committee Member Estrada, thank you very much for your comment. And Committee Member Ricosta.
I guess I have not been lobbied by anybody.
And nor have I been approached by anybody trying to influence my input into this committee. Okay, so that was Carolyn Schack, followed by Patty Picard, followed by, what do you think this says? Marie Mayer, maybe? Okay.
Okay.
We're doing good here.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Patty Picard. I'm a 41-year resident homeowner, but I don't think that I'm a homeowner matters. It wouldn't matter if I was a rental person, because I'm a resident of the city. I've seen my neighborhood change from all white to extremely mixed, which thrills me. So I really like the idea of the smaller neighborhood voting districts. I like the options in 7 because it gives my neighborhood more of a neighborhood feel. The city's options, because I live San Tomas and El Camino, you're saying now my neighborhood is out by Montague. So we're connected with Montague, which is not a connection. So the city options don't work for my neighborhood. And I also don't like the fact that every one of the city's options splits the district down El Camino. With all that's happening down El Camino, now you're going to have city council districts on either side of it, instead of having representation across El Camino, which you all see what's going on. It affects my neighborhood greatly. It's harder and harder to get in and out of my neighborhood. So I like the look of District 7, but I don't like the fact that we're not going to vote for our mayor. I think we're a little city that's a big city. We have a lot of big industry, high tech, the 49ers. We deserve to vote for our mayor to represent us across the city. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Marie Mayer, followed by Steve Chesson.
Hello, I'm Marie Mayer. Apparently I need to work on my penmanship.
No personal, nothing personal.
I wanted to, I'll open it just by saying I actually support the 3-district option. And my reasoning for this is that I have noticed that the cost of housing around here is rather expensive. And so no one can really afford to buy a house in the exact place where they feel like they belong. Like maybe it's across the street or 2 streets down. And this may be true for the person who wants to run for council, or it may be true for you or your neighbor. And so I think that our district boundaries in a city where housing is this expensive isn't necessarily a solid line in any given point. And so I think I don't know if it's possible, but to me at least, it's important that we have 2 representatives per district, because this makes up for that fact. Now we have the best chance of electing the most qualified candidates, whether they live on this street or 2 streets down, because we know that with the cost of housing, we're just trying to get in the vicinity, and we're not necessarily defined by the exact lines in which we live. At least that's how I feel. Also, if with 1 representative, if the person you vote for didn't get elected, then maybe you feel unrepresented. But with 2 representatives, 1, there's a better chance that somebody you feel passionate about gets into office. And 2, you've got 2 people working on your behalf. So maybe they get twice as many phone calls, but each one of them is going to be focused on at least the issues that are important to them. And I know this is how representatives always work. Like, they have their pet issues, and no matter how much they try to cover all of them, there's some that, pick your battles always comes into play. And so there's someone that you can talk to about the battle that you're interested in. And I want to make sure that everyone's represented. And so even though I know ranked choice may have hurt Measure A on the ballot, I think that's a reasonable solution to if we really feel that the representation needs to be adjusted. Furthermore, I really would like to continue electing our mayor. I think keeping that a democratic process is important to the city, and also having a different method of election for that in case this one should happen to break down, I think remains important to me. I don't know how to do that with 7 districts. I've heard some people get up and give really passionate arguments in favor of 7 districts, so I don't know how to make that compatible. But that's at least what I see when I look at all these pieces. So thanks very much for your time and for listening to me.
Thank you for coming to the meeting. Okay, any comments on the speaker? Okay, I have a comment. I like the idea of being able to vote for 2 council members, but unfortunately, looking at the data, when you try to do that, you're not going to be able to create a Asian majority CVAP, which is a kind of too bad, but I mean, because that's what we're trying to aim for, according to what the court is asking us to do. So, but I have another question, which is the mayoral election. In all the other municipalities, cities, counties, school districts that have settled on these voting rights issue, has this ever been like a remedy? Making mayor, doing similar to what I guess the 7th district might do to the mayor.
I'm not aware of that.
I'm sorry.
I'm not aware of that. I can't say for sure. But I have heard of cases where the remedy was to go to districts, but the mayor was still elected at large.
Okay, so to your knowledge, there has never been any municipality.
I wouldn't say never. I'm just not aware of it.
To your knowledge, to your knowledge.
To my knowledge, yeah.
Right.
I don't know of that being the remedy.
Okay, so what?
And certainly not for a charter city.
Okay, so picking a mayor indirectly has not been.
You have to understand there's general law cities, which if you read the CVRA, it's mostly geared towards general law cities. It doesn't, there's a lot of things that weren't thought of in terms of what would happen if you tried to apply this to a charter city. There's one case that talks about applying it to a charter city, and that was a case called Palmdale, but I think there's definitely some problems with that case in terms of whether or not it means that you can override a charter, whether the CVRA can override a charter, and it's not an issue that the California Supreme Court has ruled on. The charter city, the right of a city to have a charter and to be a home is contained in the home rule provision of the state constitution. So we are a charter city. We operate under the state constitution. The CVRA was passed as a statute. It's not a constitutional provision. So there's definitely an argument that the CVRA can't overrule the home rule provisions of the state constitution. I can't. I just don't, I don't think that the court has certainly not ruled at this point that we have to go to a rotating mayor. I see a lot of problems with that. And then I understand the speaker's concern about, I don't know how you reconcile seven council member, 7 districts, single member districts, with also having a citywide election of a mayor. You could have 6 single member districts and 1 citywide district, if you will, for electing the mayor. But I don't see how you have 7 single-member districts and still have a mayor elected citywide.
Okay, thank you for
I just don't.
clarifying.
I just don't. Honestly, don't understand how that could work.
Oh, okay, thank you for your input. Okay, let's see now. So the next speaker is Steve Chesson, followed by Diane Harrison. Oh, you want that up? Then maybe I'll have Diane go first and then followed by you. You don't need to make it quick. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, I think I'm the person that submitted that 7 district thing that you couldn't figure out how to fix. But it's okay because actually after seeing the school district maps, I now prefer the 6 district one, with Plan 3, Draft Plan 3, to put those school districts in their own district. And the second thing I wanted to say is that I want to echo several people, is that after this lawsuit is all finished, I think we need to start meeting to put in ranked choice for the city. Whether the plaintiffs realize it or not, that will be our best bet to increase minority representation in the city, and no matter what districts we choose. And then the third thing is, I've looked at the responses during this meeting, and that it looks like the vast majority are saying no to having the mayor as one of the districts. Everybody, and that's what I heard also tonight. So I'm wondering if, and there will be more responses coming in between now and the 17th, if we can present that and strongly say, you know, the people of the city do want to elect their mayor. They don't want it to be a mayor of just one district. Maybe that will sway the judge. That's my hope. So that's the third thing. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Harrison brings up an important point. What are we going to do with what we discussed at today's meeting?
The order just says to hold the hearings. It doesn't say what we do with the content of the hearings vis-a-vis the court. So I certainly think it's important that the judge know what happened at these hearings. The hearings are very limited in nature. So we're in a very uncharted territory. I'm not aware of any other litigation that has proceeded the way this one has, in terms of trying to have public hearings at the same time as you're gearing up to have a trial on remedies. So I think it's important that the judge hear what the people of Santa Clara want. So to the extent we can present this information to the court, I certainly will pass that on to our litigator attorneys. And I have informed the judge that he's welcome to look at our website and follow all our proceedings here. These are all recorded and available on the internet. Although I don't know what that means from a litigation standpoint, how proper it is for a judge to take evidence by simply looking at stuff on the internet. I don't know, but I don't. In terms of for the judge understanding what's happening here and what the people have said at these hearings, I think we will try to get as much information to the judge as we can in whatever procedure that seems proper for the judge.
So after the last hearing of this committee, the city gave round 1 input. So there's maybe going to be
and we simply said we're
input.
submitting these maps. We did not say that the committee recommended any or all of the maps or one.
Right.
None of them. There was no recommendation.
Right.
It was just simply submittal.
Understood. Okay. But the city may provide another set of input to the court after this hearing.
Yeah, the court is looking for an answer on sequencing
Oh,
So which district should go
okay.
in any or all, I guess, I don't know on which of the maps, but the plaintiffs have submitted their proposal on sequencing, which I described at the beginning of the meeting. And Dr. Gobele has suggested which of the 7 district maps, actually in all of the maps, she's pointed out which districts do not have incumbents. So that's just information that we're providing to the committee in terms of if they want to make a recommendation about sequencing.
Okay, Dr. Gubale?
I figured out what I didn't know a little while ago about the sequencing for the plaintiff's alternative plan. There are 2 incumbents living in District 3 in the alternative plan proposal.
Oh, okay.
So 2 incumbents live in this district.
Davis and
Terms
O'Neill?
expire in 2020.
Okay.
And the one of whom is the mayor. And the districts 2 and 4 have no incumbents in them. And the mayor's in District 6. We have 2 incumbents with terms expiring in 2020 in District 3. District 5 has an incumbent, terms expire this year, and District 7 has an incumbent with a 2020 expiration date. So we have districts in this alternative proposal. We have District 1 and District 7, each of which has 1 incumbent with 2020 expiration. We have Districts 2 and 4 with no incumbents. And we have District 5 and 6 with incumbents expiring this year. And District 3 has 2 incumbents with 2020 expiration dates. So the districts that logically could be up for election this year are 2, 4, 5, and 6.
Thank you.
Yeah, point of order, we're in the public presentation part of the agenda. We should be covering this later. I think we're out of order.
Okay. All right.
Thank
you,
and sorry, and I
Dr.
say
Gobele.
that so that we don't keep the people who want to speak waiting.
Okay, Dr. Gubale, thank you very much. Steve Chesson, are you ready to speak? Yeah. And he's going to be followed by Bruce.
Yeah, thank you. Is there a way that I can highlight? What did I just do? Oh, I see how this works. Great. Unfortunately, I've got a laser pointer, so the audience will be able to see what I'm pointing out, but you guys won't. I'm sorry about that.
Oh, you can point on that one.
Well, then I point there, and then I point there.
Here's one that you can use.
Sure. Will that highlight?
Yeah, on all of them, yeah.
Beautiful.
Technology is great. Hi, my name is Steve Chesson. I'm president of Californians for Electoral Reform, and I, for one, do appreciate the hard work that your committee is doing. I served on a redistricting committee for the county back in 2000, and I know what kind of hard work it is. I wanted to talk about like I talked last time, about the percentages of Asian Americans that live in the districts that are likely to elect an Asian American candidate of choice. And if I'm doing that right, okay, yeah, in District 1, which according to the plaintiffs has an Asian CVAP of 50.5%, only about 22.8 or 23% of the Asian Americans in Santa Clara County, in the city of Santa Clara, live in that district. Then the district with the second highest, District 3, which has a CVAP of 44.9%, 20% of the Asian Americans of Santa Clara live in that district. So basically, 43% of the Asian Americans in Santa Clara would have the ability to elect a candidate of their choice, and the other 57% of the Asian Americans in the city would not be able to elect a candidate of their choice. And by the way, none of the plaintiffs live in any of those districts. I'll skip showing where the plaintiffs are. Then if we can go to the, which I think I can do that. Oh, wonderful. Okay, and in this District 1, there we go. 23.3% of the Asian Americans in Santa Clara live in that district. And now it's, the second one would be District 4. And in that one, about only 15.9, about 16% of the Asian Americans in Santa Clara live in that district. So there you're only getting about 40% of Asian Americans who can elect a candidate of their choice, and the other 60% of the Asian Americans in Santa Clara would not be living in a district there where they would be able to elect a candidate of their choice. Then another thing that I wanted to talk about was the tools that were made available. I'm very disappointed that the city decided not to make Maptitude available even in the first round of districting. I helped the city of Santa Clara, sorry, the city of Menlo Park, citizens there with their districting process, and there the city decided that asked their demographer, which was the National Demographic Corporation, to make Maptitude available to the public, which gives the public the ability to make block-level lines, not these large pieces, which are very hard to use. And I was disappointed that the city did not ask their demographer, demographic research, to make a similar tool available. And I hope that for the 2020 districting, that you do that, that you do make a tool available to the public that allows them to draw district lines based on census blocks. And finally, Fair Vote has filed an amicus brief. It's available, it was filed tonight. It'll be available on the court's portal within the next couple of days. I urge everybody to read it. It proposes a solution that either the plaintiffs and the city will both love or they'll both hate, but that's what you get out of, that's what you want in a compromise. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Is the staff familiar with Maptitude? Yeah, okay. Maybe it's something we can look into.
You want me to say something about that?
Sure, sure.
Yes, I'm very well aware of Maptitude online redistricting as a utility. It takes a while to set it up. And when we were doing 2 districts, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. But obviously, it would have helped to have 6 district and 7 district plans able to be made using blocks as building blocks. But I didn't start working on 6 district plans. I wasn't asked by the city to start working on them until June 18th, and there just wasn't time to do this. Had to scramble.
Yep, I appreciate
to do anything.
That. But maybe it's something we can think about
yes,
because
indeed. It does make districting more expensive, but the members of the public really like to be able to draw their own plans. They really love it, and that's what you have to do if there's going to be public input to a significant extent, especially in high-tech areas like this.
Yeah, and with any of these plans, I mean, we're going to have to redraw the district lines based on what I'm hearing because of the population changes. So we're going to have to go through this exercise anyway. Okay, all right. So that was Steve Chesson, followed by Bruce, followed by Baron Steves.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment on a basic issue. The right to vote is a fundamental issue of our country. I have voted to have the City Council use their collective wisdom to administer our city. I have not voted for lawyers nor a Superior Court judge to engineer my choices or determine how I may vote. It appears that there is a rush to judgment and a collection of ideas and data that has not been digested and commented on fully by the public. The division of the city into districts by a demographer has been based on research and public records. The calculation of the district boundaries has been according to a demographer's understanding of the law and precedents for establishing concentration of ethnic minorities. To date, I have not heard an independent legal consultant provide any legal justification of the numerical work or standards that the demographer has used. I need more time to establish in my mind a traditional and reasonable method to ensure the public vote allows public free choices. The elimination of the position of a citywide elected mayor is unjustified. The current system seems fine. The mayor's position should not be restricted to a limited number of voters. The council should consider placing an advisory vote on the coming ballot. the public should vote on the overturning of the Superior Court hasty judgment to control the elections. And thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Bernd Steves followed by Paul Kreger, and that's the last card I have, but of course, oh, well, I spoke to some.
Good evening, council members and everyone.
Maybe you can raise the...
Oh, sorry, thank you, yes. First of all, thank you to the committee members for their patience in conducting these hearings. We have in the past been critical about some of the assumptions that were built into the process, but of course that is to be understood when one is proceeding helter-skelter, which was imposed on the committee and on the city by the court proceedings. Thank you also to the city attorney for patiently and I think very ably presenting the situation in a very confusing legal situation. And thank you also to Ms. Gobale for providing quite a lot of very helpful input through her research. I apologize for not having been here earlier. I'm not entirely sure what was presented by the committee to, I suppose, the court, and especially, of course, I'm interested in whether our proposal was presented. I represent, as you'll recall, various citizens and residents, Steve Peck and Hani Ajus, and Steve Peck's minor sons who are Japanese American. There has been a lot of support here for ranked choice voting. There does not seem to be a feasible option for the November 2018 election, even though it's theoretically a very attractive option. What should be feasible in our view, given what the Registrar of Voters is set up in terms of computer systems so on to do, is cumulative voting, where everyone, in this case, gets 2 votes and can vote for any candidates, and voters also would have the choice of putting both of their votes on one candidate. That gives a minority block of voters, if that exists, a much better chance to elect a candidate of their choice. If we have, for example, 66% majority and 34% minority, under cumulative voting, the minority is guaranteed a seat in a 2-member open election. Lastly, procedurally, we request that the city arrange for interested parties to make to present their position directly to the court in a suitably abbreviated fashion, possibly preceded by a brief. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Any comments? No? No? All right. Bernd Steves followed by, oh, wait, that was Bernd Steves. Paul Kreger followed by Margaret. A1 maybe? Okay, thank you.
Hi. My questions may be redundant. Who and how and when does the city submit the results of these 4 public meetings to the County Superior Court? End of question.
Would you like to finish your comment, or are you done?
I'm done. That's a question.
Okay, all right, because I do not want to interrupt you in the middle of your 3 minutes.
Oh, turn off the machine.
Is that okay? Okay, all right. Would you like to answer that question?
I don't know. No, I mean, seriously, I don't know. There's a lot has been said tonight. I don't know the form of how the collective comments of the public would get to the court. I suppose if the committee were to determine what it wanted to recommend based upon the public comments, we can submit the committee's recommendation as to whether they want to recommend a map and as to whether they want to recommend a sequencing for a map. So I can't. Again, the court's order is simply the city hold the hearings and make its best efforts to provide a map or maps last week. And it's my understanding that they are seeking from the city a sequencing. So when you say, when the judge says the city, it's not clear exactly how that's supposed to happen. But since we have a committee, I think it's within your ability, if you so choose, to make a recommendation, and we can certainly, via some kind of pleading, submit that to the court.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to have that part of our discussion after the public statement. Okay, all right, let's do that. All right, thank you.
May I?
Yeah.
Just based on what was just
sorry,
said.
I'd also like to add, I'm sorry to interrupt, we can also forward the correspondence that we've received to date on Open City Hall, the emails, and we are putting together minutes as well that we can forward.
Okay, thank you, thank you.
Based on what we just said, are any things submitted in pieces, in parts? In other words, or is it one total fell swoop after all these meetings are over?
When you say pieces, are you talking about
I've heard the word.
more than one document?
No, I've heard the word tonight, submit, and it sounded like things have been submitted already. And it makes sense to share with the judge sort of the way things are going. Is that what submit means?
I don't understand.
Me to respond, Chair?
Sure, please.
This is a difficult situation, me responding directly to the public in terms of questions. Again, I just want to make the public aware that this is extremely unusual litigation. I've never even heard of a litigation like this where a judge orders a municipality to hold hearings with no real direction as to how the results of those hearings should be communicated back to the court. We don't have an answer. I'm assuming that certainly if there's a minutes of the meeting where the committee has made some kind of recommendation or decision, that we can certainly submit that in the form of probably either a declaration or some kind of certified record from the acting city clerk who's here. But in terms of what volume the court will accept, the court decides what it wants to accept and how it wants to receive evidence. And at this point, we don't have an answer. So I simply just don't have an answer for the gentleman who's at the microphone.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody, for support.
Okay, thank you. Right, so Margaret Heyman.
Thank you.
Heyman, right.
Thank you very much. I've lived and voted in Santa Clara for 22 years. Many people, myself included, have a low level of confidence that the 2020 census will accurately count minority populations due to what I understand is a very low level of staffing on the 2020 census so far. And I'd be interested to hear from the committee and staff and from Dr. Gobele if you feel that any particular plan minimizes the impact of undercounting these populations going forward.
Okay, so I'm asking each member of the public to, if they have questions or comments, to complete the comments and the questions. So then proceed to answering questions. So are you done with your comments?
That's my only question.
I see. Okay, thank you.
I'll yield the rest of my time.
All right. Dr. Gobale, would you like to?
The Census Bureau always thinks that it could do a better job if it had more funding. And of course, we don't like to have our taxpayer dollars spent on things that don't matter. I'm saying that a little bit cynically because sometimes it's hard to know what matters. In any event, past undercounts of census populations, which have been studied pretty extensively by the Census Bureau and others, have identified certain groups more likely to be undercounted, and those include people who are poor, people who are not in the U.S. legally, and certain minority groups are less likely to be counted fully than others. And without reviewing the literature, I can't tell you specifically how that might relate to the city of Santa Clara, but I would say that this is not the kind of community where I think undercounts would be very large or would be very much of an issue. I think that there are many places where that's much more likely to happen, like in big inner cities with high poverty rates and many undocumented people. So I just would say I don't think that's going to be a big issue here. And I'm sure that there will be big efforts here as well as across the country by Census Bureau and local jurisdictions to get out the count for Census 2020. And it's supposed to be going to be easier to be counted than ever. But we'll have to see. But the undercounts will be computed or estimated eventually.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak?
Hassam Hagag here. I think tonight, by the end of the meeting, it's really important that the committee again, present to the judge some information, the pertinent information, and I would break that down into three requests. The first one is to reject outright the 7 district plans that were proposed by the plaintiffs. They do not provide any better CVAP than any of the 6 districts plans, and as you've heard in the comments tonight, verbally, as well as all the comments, many of the comments that were submitted online, Santa Clarans still want to vote for their mayor, in addition to the legal questions as to whether or not the judge can overrule the charter with regards to electing the mayor. And for people who were, the plaintiffs who were talking about gerrymandering, their 7 districts maps are way more gerrymandered than any of the other maps that we've worked on. So first request is for the committee to outright request the city to represent a total rejection of the 7 district plans. The other point that I want to make is with regards to the 5 maps that you guys submitted to, the city submitted to the court, the 2 district map, the 1 2 district map, and then the 6 districts maps and the 3 district maps. One thing that's really important to understand is that in support of many of the comments that you heard here tonight, where it is good for Santa Clarans to be represented by more than 1 council member, in the 2 district map, you have a CVAP in the northern district of Asians at 34%. And keep in mind, you are electing 3 council members in that scenario. So it is still a good option for Asian Americans in the northern district, in the 2 district map, to be able to elect a member of their choosing. You have in the 3 district maps, where you are represented by 2 council members, a CVAP that is 38% Asian compared to a 39% white in the northern 1+2 district. And we know from Dr. Gobale that the error of margin on CVAP calculations is fairly significant. So again, you have almost a plurality of Asian CVAP in the 3 district maps. So again, you're electing 2 council members. It still provides an opportunity for Asian Americans to elect a member of their choosing. So I would very much, as my second point, encourage the committee to continue or to not rescind any of the 5 maps that you recommended, or not recommended, but submitted last week. Again, more options for the judge to consider is better. Let's not pigeonhole ourselves by reducing options that the judge could consider. And then my final point in the last 10 seconds is with regards to sequencing, which I do believe you should take a position on tonight. We've seen in the request from the plaintiffs that they are shooting themselves in the foot by recommending that Asian Americans go in gubernatorial cycles rather than in presidential cycles, knowing that minorities come out in bigger numbers in presidential cycles. So I would take that into consideration when recommending sequencing. Thank you.
Okay, so Mr. Haggad, that's different from opposite of what you asked on Tuesday or last meeting.
May I?
Yes, please.
Yeah, so if you recall last meeting, what I suggested was, although it is, and if you recall, you can pull back the meeting, I said, although it flies in the face of the logic that we talked about even in the previous districting meeting, where you want minorities to go in presidential cycles, I stated in the last meeting that it is likely that the plaintiffs want the judge to impose a solution that will more immediately elect an Asian American, which is 2018. So I said, even though it flies in the face of the logic, this is likely what the plaintiffs want, and that got confirmed with what they proposed to the judge. So again, it's about whether or not you believe that the judge should be more expedient, although it harms Asian Americans long term, or do you want to do the solution that is long term better for Asian Americans? So I leave that to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, Brian Christensen, resident for about 40 years. There was a question a while back as to why would a 7-district model make sense for the city? I think it's because the mayor is, we don't have a strong mayor in the city. We have a city manager who kind of manages the city, and the mayor is kind of another council person almost. So to the extent that maybe some people would want to be able to elect the face of the city, the representative of the city, somebody who represents the whole city. As a 6th district might make sense, or maybe perhaps the plaintiffs are thinking that since the mayor is more of just a council person, the 7th district makes sense to them. So that's all I was thinking. I don't have a preference one way or the other. I was just trying to provide some clarity. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, you've already spoken, sir. Okay, 1 sentence.
Thank you. Just really 1 sentence. We talked about cumulative voting, and I said with cumulative voting, a minority of 34% is guaranteed 1 seat. In real life scenarios, they're likely to get a 2nd seat as low as 22 or 25%. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Seconded. All in favor? Aye. Okay, let's have our discussion. Oh, okay, let's have a 5-minute break, and we're gonna reconvene at, what time is it? 8:07. Oh, it's 8:17? 8.
It's 8:17 now.
8:25? Let's reconvene at 8:25, okay. Thank you.
I can quickly put together which slides are relevant here. No, I don't think.
How you doing, Brian? Good to see you.
Okay, we're reconvening the meeting. So, based on what we just heard and discussed, firstly, I like to ask my fellow committee members if it would make sense for us to formulate additional recommendations from this meeting. Committee member Estrada.
Could you ask the audience to quiet down, please? I can't hear.
Okay. Okay, we're continuing with the meeting, so if you'd like to have private conversations, please kindly do it somewhere else.
Before we make some recommendations, I think we should have some discussion and determine if that's the direction that we really want to go. So
Okay.
if
all right.
One of us should open discussion, I guess.
Well, I propose that we choose one district map and then do the sequencing of it. I don't think it would make sense for us to do sequencing for every possibility. And I'm willing to talk about my choice, if we can go that. So I feel, well, first of all, I feel we need to go with a sixth district map, simply for no other reason, as was pointed out by the city attorney, is that it's against the charter of the city of Santa Clara to have 7 districts, and not because the charter provides us to elect a mayor at large. So it would just be like at the federal level having something be unconstitutional. It's against our charter to advocate or have 7, unless the charter changed, but we're not in the business, we don't have the power of changing the charter. So we have to go with a 6-member. And the other reason, I would have to say that I want to be in a compromising mood or position when we go to court. If we go in with a 2 or 3, that's way different from 7. So if we go to 6, and frankly, if the court wants to adjust some of the boundaries for the 6 districts, I'm fine with that if we end up with a balanced 6-district map. So that's the most important, and I would pick DP1 just as a way for starting. And it is interesting, and yes, the gerrymandering in the plaintiff's map 1 is very apparent in District 3. Right, but draft plan 1, DP1, draft plan 1. And it's interesting, we were talking about just recently about, well, if it's 3 districts, you have 2 council people representing you. Well, ironically, right now, 7 council people represent each person in the city of Santa Clara. So I just point that out because everyone votes for all of them. I know we have to change that, but I just wanted to point out the irony. And also, yes, as I said before, we're a big city now. If you look at San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose, the 3 big cities in the Bay Area, they all elect their representative by district. But guess what? They all elect a mayor at large. So if we want to be a big city, we need to act like a big city. So, and unfortunately, if we go with 7 districts, that forces you to go to a mayor that's not elected at large. So for all those reasons, for my personal opinion, we need to go to a 6th district and DP1. If my fellow commissioners want something different, I'm kind of open, but as long as it's a 6th district map.
Okay, thank you for outlining your thoughts and your reasonings. Okay, any inputs from committee member Estrada?
Thank you, Chair. I agree on several comments made by Commissioner Rocosa. I am also not in favor of 7 districts for the reasons stated. And I do believe that by the pieces that they put together, that they're moving them so that there's a lot of representation in one area, but not in the other. I'm also in favor of electing the mayor by the people and not having a 6-member or 7-member board elect the mayor that's going to represent the city. I think that, so I'm not in favor with either of the plaintiffs' maps for those reasons. And I am leaning towards, if we make a recommendation on draft plan 3, and only the reason that I was drawn to that map is because when Dr. Gobele included the overlay of the school districts, I think that it's covered better in Plan 3, where Cupertino and Campbell school districts are. Otherwise, it's kind of split between the 3. So, and it covers the same percentages for CBAP, the 51% of the Asian community is 51% in District 1, and an Hispanic community in District 2 with 27%, which is basically the same that draft number 1 is. So what brought me to choosing 3 over 1, and I'm also open for further discussion on that, was because the way the school districts are laid out in those areas. So those are my comments.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your opinion and reasoning. I, in of same opinion with both members Estrada and Ricosa. DP1 versus DP3, I really, I don't know at this moment. Committee member Ricosa?
If DP3 is more in line with the school district boundaries, then I would choose that.
Okay. I mean, that was basically what was that little extra edge over. I mean, basically 1 would work for me as well as 3, but when I saw the school map laid out, I felt that it was a better design for that district.
Okay, well, I mean, I like DP3 then. Yeah, okay. Thank you. Okay, so that's the first question that I was hoping to address, which is, do we have any more refined choice on the map? And it sounds like we do. Out of the 5 we proposed, there's one that's emerged.
I just want to make one more comment. Thank you. The gentleman from the audience indicated we should send all the maps and maybe not make a recommendation and not cut ourselves short. But for me, the maps have already been presented to the judge. So if he doesn't like our recommendation, he still has 7 maps to pick from. So we're not taking away from, I don't think we're taking away by only submitting 1 recommended map at this point based on the additional information and the comments and all the things that have gone on since last week. So I just wanted to address that issue. So I don't think we need to say we're going to send back 5 maps with no really additional information. So that's why I'd like to go with 1.
Right,
So
but I want to point out with any map with less than 6 districts, there's no Asian CVAP majority, right? So that clearly wouldn't be acceptable to the court. So we'd have to go with at least 6. Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right. So then, how about with in addition to the input we already provided on 5 maps that to tell the court or have in the minutes of this meeting that this committee's preference is DP3 with 6.
Right. We want to go clearly with 1. Recognize, yes, clear with 1 map.
Okay. Yes.
I'd like to remind you that I suggested a revised version of draft plan 3 to clean up that little piece of territory that in response to public comment.
Right. Okay.
So this does not affect sequencing, though.
Right.
It's just that perhaps you might want to focus on this map rather than the original draft plan 3.
So I'd like to clarify on that. When Committee Member Estrada, when you said DP3, you're talking about the updated version of...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Was that...
With the
yes, I'm fine with that.
Oh, okay, all right.
Okay. With the additional information of the slide with the school districts.
Okay, all right. Okay, all right, so do we need to make
a motion?
Motion?
Okay.
Let's make a motion then.
Um,
Oh, wait.
For the purpose of having minutes, I think it would be good to take a motion.
Oh, all right, got it.
Let me make the motion?
Yes, please.
Okay, this committee, I make a motion that we submit draft plan 3 as amended by Dr. Gobele, and also the school district slide be submitted with that, and as the recommended plan for the city of Santa Clara.
I second.
Okay, any discussions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. How about like a motion on mayoral election? Should we, I think we've expressed
Want to
our
have a
opinions.
recommended statement?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I make a motion that we emphasize the fact that electing the mayor at large of the whole city is very important, as expressed by the citizens of the city.
And for the reasons that you stated, too.
Yes.
I second that motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have two motions that we are passing, okay. I guess another question that emerged is, okay, I don't know. I guess the question is
Sorry,
sequencing?
yes, as I recommended, we should now do the sequencing for draft plan 3 revised.
And then, right. And I'm sorry, not to mean to interrupt you, but the plaintiff's recommendation is to allow the incumbents to stay in the office. So the plaintiff is addressing the issues of whether, what we're recommending should or should or should not affect the incumbents. So maybe we can address those two issues right now?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
And as Mr. Hagag pointed out, that they wanted them to go, the new election to be in 2018, the gubernatorial, not the presidential, which members of the Asian community in the previous testimony preferred. So, right, just to point that out. So we may choose to go with what the people in our city told us during the Measure A testimony.
Which is to
Postpone the election in the highest Asian CVAP to the presidential election when the turnout is bigger.
Okay, all right, I understand what you're saying. Any thoughts on incumbents?
Well, I think it's very important because with lack of any other judicial record that nobody has ever been thrown out of office during a redistricting, so we have to allow all the incumbents to serve their full term.
Okay, all right. Any thoughts on those two issues from Committee Member Estrada?
I just want to clarify with Dr. Gobele. Okay, on the draft plan 3, it indicates here District 2 and 3 could be open for November 2018 elections. District 1, 4, 5, and 6 have incumbents which terms expire in 2020. So if you look at draft 3 and the CVAP in District 1 is 51%, and so if you leave it for a presidential election, you have more of an opportunity to get an Asian candidate elected. We're already in July, and then the November election is less than like 4 or 5 months, and so I don't think it's going to help to get an election, to get a Asian candidate or a Hispanic candidate elected in those districts in 2018, that they would have a better opportunity of representation in planning and developing their candidates for 2020. So I would be wanting to go with the recommendation as indicated on this page. And I think Dr. Gobele has a comment.
Okay, just to make sure I understand. So your recommendation is similar to, Committee Members Ricosas.
Well, yeah, I think.
Well, as a starting point, we can use what's in red on this page.
Okay.
And frankly, if the plaintiffs argue and want it the other way, that's an area of reasonable compromise in my point of view.
I see. Okay. Okay. Yes, thanks for
I
waiting.
wanted to comment with draft plan 3, there is an incumbent in District 1, which is the highest Asian CVAP share district. and that incumbent's term expires in 2020. So
Right.
it would be consistent to recommend District 2 elect this year. And the thing is that we need a third, so District 2 and District 3 would be the districts to be elected this year. And an additional reason not to do District 1 is the fact that there's an incumbent whose term ends in 2 years.
Right, which
agree.
actually blends in with the testimony of waiting till the presidential election. So
Yes.
from our point of view, for our citizens, it works. I mean, our citizens' testimony.
So I guess, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So does it have to be 3 and 3? So in 2018, do we need to elect 3 council districts? Or is it okay to do 2 and 4?
Well, it's 3 council members and 4 council members. The mayor is still a council member. It's just a council member elected at large that represents the city at large. So it would be, yes, it would be 4 council members in 2020 if the court were to adopt the plan whereby the mayor still is elected at large in 2018, and then 2 council members would be elected in 2018, and then 4 council members would be elected in 2020, and that is in fact what the plaintiff was proposing. So that would be a consistent pattern with what the plaintiff was proposing as well. It may not be what the plaintiff wants in terms of sequencing, but in terms of 3 and 4, that is what the plaintiff was proposing as well.
Okay, all right. Yes, Dr. Gobele.
In this 6-district plan, we have 2 districts that could be elected this year, and the other 4 have incumbents whose terms expire in 2020. And in that case, we have 2 districts with 2018 election dates and 4 with 2020 election dates. So later on down the line in 2020, perhaps one of the districts could be designated as having just a 2-year term. There are ways of getting around this. To make it 3 and 3, 3 districts elected each every 2 years.
Exactly. I think as you were alluding to, that we eventually have to get to 3 and 3 4-year terms, alternating every 2 years.
That's right.
And it may take a little bit. Well, even in Measure A, there was a lot of language to get to that.
Yeah, yes. So it could be transitioned in, but there would only be 2 districts up for election this year in order to permit all of the incumbents to continue.
So based on what you guys are saying, so which districts are going to go in 2018?
Okay, according to this slide, it would be District 2 and 3 would be open for November 18th election.
2 and 3.
Bottom right part of the slide.
Yeah, here.
Council members could be elected from districts 2 and 3 this fall, and the other all have incumbents whose terms expire in 2020.
Yeah. Okay. Over here, it's on this one. You can read it on that one. It's the same page.
Oh, this one. Okay, got it. Okay. Right. So it will be 2 and 3 for 2018, which have the
Which have CVAPs of 27% and 33%, which of course is not high.
So District 1, we have a better chance of getting an Asian candidate elected in a presidential year if we go with this sequencing, in my opinion.
But that's true, but taking the psychological point of it, if the 2018 election, doesn't result in having an Asian elected, then it'll be seen possibly as a failure or negative. Just the point of view of having a quick win at the beginning.
I don't think we have that. I don't think we can control that.
Dr. Gopale?
Something to point out is that many people seem to assume that only if an Asian candidate, someone whose Asian ancestry, gets elected, do the Asian voters elect a candidate of choice, but of course, people don't necessarily vote along race ethnic lines.
That's right. I deeply respect, like what Mr. Kwan said, it's if
Yeah, they
people
elect a
go for
candidate
the
of
best
choice.
candidate, but that's the entire assumption of this entire case.
Well, I understand. I'd like to just point out, I have read reports that many districts have gone to, many jurisdictions have gone to district elections, and it has not resulted in more minorities getting elected. It just, but under the statute as it's written, there would not be any consequence to that. I mean, if we're assuming a lot of things we don't know, but if the judge were to rule that the 6th district would happen in this November, and an Asian or some other minority did not get elected, there's a lot of moving parts in this. I mean, you know, maybe an Asian doesn't get elected. The purpose of the act is not to get an Asian elected. The purpose of the act is to allow protected groups to have, to be able to elect the candidate of their choice. So that may not be an Asian. There may be a lousy Asian candidate
That was exactly my
that
point.
competes against a very good non-Asian candidate that Asians would prefer, and that's what the purpose of the act is designed to achieve. So I don't think you could simply say, just because in November 2018 an Asian did not get elected under this sequencing, that you had failed or anybody had failed. I think it's simply following the remedy that the statute provides.
It's a matter of perception. As I think about it more, our job is to, execute the will of the public, and the public testimony said they wanted District 1 in the presidential election. So
Right.
I think that's what we should go with.
Okay, all right.
And I think if, as this indicates here, that's what would happen.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so are we in agreement?
I think so. So let me make sure that, let me make sure I got everybody's opinions correctly. So 2018 districts 2 and 3, 2020 districts 1, 4, 5, 6 is what we like to recommend. What we're saying. Okay.
Yes.
Now, somebody mentioned, one of Dr. Gobole, that in 2020 one of those 4 districts may have to go for 2-year term. Is that something we need to? 2-year term. We should talk about here, or?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's part of what the judge is looking to
Okay,
rule.
all right, then we won't go for it.
That's minor transitional stuff that
Okay.
would happen. It would be a one-off thing and shouldn't concern us in the long term.
Right.
Sure. Okay, so would somebody like to make a motion then?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion for sequencing that districts 2 and 3 would be open for election in November 2018, and District 1, 4, and 5 have current incumbents, and their terms will expire in 2020. And I recommend that District 1, 4, 5, and 6 will be open for election in 2020.
For the modified DP3.
As per draft plan 3.
Updated, okay.
Updated plan. Yes.
I second the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you. All right, so let me find my cheat sheet, because I jotted
Sorry, let me
a
ask,
few
does
more
city
things.
staff see any other business we need to conduct here?
Oh, okay, so one of the things that several speakers spoke about is ranked choice voting in 2020. Is that something that this committee should speak to? What do you think?
No.
I don't believe so.
No?
I think it's outside of our realm. I don't think we have any, I don't.
All right,
Sorry.
so then in that case, I don't think any, I think we, yeah, I was, yeah.
Just wanted to make an
sure.
announcement to the public, because it might be of interest to the same public that's here. There will be a special city council meeting on Monday, July 16th, at which the council will consider putting ballot measures on the ballot for 2018, for November 2018, to see if to actually ask the people what they would like in terms of districts. So it would be, and I don't know what the council will do, but we will be presenting to the council several choices about possible ballot measures, whether for example, do they want to put a ballot measure on to go to 6 districts, to go to 2 districts, to go to 3 districts? This would be a way of finding out from the voters what exactly it is they would like in terms of districts.
But won't this be after the court renders its decision?
Well, it won't be after what?
The court renders its decision on July
Well,
23rd.
the court may render a decision, but the city may appeal it.
Okay.
So if the city appeals it, it would be better to have, we're presenting to the council the possibility of going to districts in accordance with the charter. So maybe the council will put these ballot measures on, maybe they won't. We're just simply informing the public if they want to have input into whether the council should put these ballot measures on. It's a way of amending the charter, not by the judge, but by the people themselves. And if the people decide to go to 6 districts, then that's what the people decide. And that's consistent with the home rule provisions of the charter, and it's home rule provisions of the state constitution, and it's consistent with the charter. So we're presenting that possibility to the council if they want to put these ballot measures on to amend the charter. They might do that on Monday. We're simply trying to provide that information.
And I will note that that would be for implementation for the 2020 election, not for the 2018. Yeah, so just to make that clarification.
So the ballot measures would be at the 2018 election, and then issues like sequencing and whether you have a try to aligning, that could be worked out later, as well as the districts themselves could be worked out later in a much more time-friendly and
it would allow for the public
allow a lot more public for the public to actually draw the districts. So the districts would not be drawn prior to the election. It would just simply be, the question would be asked, do you want 6 districts? Do you want 2 districts? Do you want 3 districts? I don't know what the council wants to do, but we're presenting these as possibilities, and it's an avenue to have the council see if they want to have the people make the decision.
And what time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Here?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, yes.
I do have a question. So with all the additional things that are coming and going, will this ad hoc committee continue? Or will it be disbanded, finalized?
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
I think that's
Just
the
curious.
best answer. So please stay on call for us.
Yes, stay on call.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, I really do want to thank the ad hoc committee. We really, really appreciate your efforts.
Well, thank you for
and all
your
your hard work.
work.
Thank you very much.
Make this happen, right? Dr. Goubelet. Yeah. So I don't know if there's anything else, but
will the city staff amend the website to cancel the meeting on July 21st?
I think they might have already done that, but we will try to get the word out that meeting will not occur.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second?
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you for serving.
Stand the gap. Yeah, we're done.
Here,
Thank
you
you.
can do it too.
No, it's